Commission for Gender Equality is calling on General Sehlahle Masemola to establish dedicated gender-based violence units across all 9 provinces. The Chapter 9 institution also wants the Police Commissioner to speedily address the historic DNA backlog, which has impacted on the progress of rape cases. The Commission says it's disturbed by the last 3 quarterly crime statistics, which reveal a rapid increase in contact crimes, including sexual offences against women and girls. Joining me now to discuss this is Tamara Matabula, the Commission for Gender Equality Chairperson, as well as WISE for Africa Director Advocate Brenda Madumise-Pajibo. Good evening, ladies, and thank you very much for your time and joining us tonight here on In Focus. Given the magnitude of the problem of gender-based violence and what we're dealing with, and also the stats that are showing an increase really by the day, what has been the limitation up until this point of having these violence protection units established? Matabula, good evening.
Good evening to you and good evening to your listeners out there. Thank you for having me. First and foremost, I just want to again congratulate Mr. Masemola, whom we have worked very closely with as the Commission for Gender Equality over the past few years. We really say congratulations for his appointment. I think on the issue and the concerns that we currently have is that having worked very closely with the South African Police Services as the Commission for Gender Equality and as a Chapter 9 institution whose constitutional mandate is to actually monitor and make sure that we evaluate the services that are provided by government. So SAPS was one of them. And having worked very closely with them, what we have realized was that a lot of contact crimes, go there is an increase in the first place. And I think the last 3 statistics that have been released, and especially the one that was released on the 18th of February, they show that, yes, definitely there is an increase, and in some places there is a decrease of rape crimes that have been noted. So this has become our issue and our concern as the Gender Commission, and we have also gone out to just look at what are the issues that are causing these contact crimes and murders of women, members of the LGBTI, women with disabilities, and rape of young men and boys. And what we have realized was that there aren't any dedicated and well-trained South African Police Service officials that are able to deal with these cases. That's one. But the second issue is that even in the police stations don't have dedicated units with human resources as well as dedicated vehicles that are able to deal with these crimes. But thirdly, and what is quite key and most important is that we have realized that there are backlogs caused by DNA results. And these backlog cases that we have monitored in many courts around 9 provinces in the country are caused by the fact that DNA are taken as tests, and these are sent to laboratories. And in laboratories, there are very few laboratories in the country. I know that one is in Gqeberha in Port Elizabeth, and one is in the Western Cape. So I think we are concerned, and we are calling the newly appointed SAPS National Commissioner to actually look at these issues and make sure that they unblock these blockages in terms of DNA results, so that cases are not thrown out of courts, but they are dealt with the results that have, according to turnaround times, are able to reach courts, and these murder cases are able to be dealt with.
I want to talk about those blockages in a moment, and not call a spade a garden implement, but call a spade, and exactly find out what are these blockages and what constitutes these blockages. Advocate Brenda, let me bring you in here. What I am hearing is that provincial governments are in the process of implementing the plan for gender-based violence prevention, including the establishment of these dedicated units. They've been in the process for a while. I'm just failing to understand, firstly, why there is no coordination. For example, you hear of one province saying we are much closer, we even have allocated a budget for it, but you don't see that degree of coordination and consistency across all provinces.
Thank you. Firstly, the Minister of Police announced a year ago that they will establish gender-based violence desks. It was not called units, it was called desks, dedicated desks within police stations to address GBV cases. And we understand that those desks have been established, so if you go and report a gender-based violence issue, especially rape, there's a dedicated team that is set up in the police station to address rape in particular. So the call for the units is not new, and it requires the resources for that to happen. That's the first thing. So the CGE must be doing is to monitor these desks or units, whatever you call them, in the respective police stations so that they can address and attend to gender-based violence. The second aspect to all of this is, and I would want the CGE and everyone else to look at the judgment that has just come out of the Constitutional Court today on holding the Minister of Police liable for delictual damage, meaning the negligence of the police to conduct and investigate cases thoroughly and without duty of care and skill, that they will be held liable financially. And that's where we're heading now, right? So if you have a police force that is cavalier towards the treatment of victims of violence, and especially gender-based violence, when I go in and report a case and you have a police officer who does not investigate that matter and in fact exercises a duty of care and skill in that matter, the chances are they will be held liable, and it is a pecuniary and monetary value that is attached to it. That chance. Thirdly, if we talk of the DNA backlog, we have had this backlog for the last couple of years. The minister announced that there are measures put in place to address the backlog. Now, we have not seen one of those measures because as we speak today, we still have backlog of DNA cases in this country. If you look at Kabeja, which is in the Eastern Cape, they don't have a lab. Every single rape case that happens in Kabeja, they need to drive and take the specimen in a motor vehicle, and in the response plan that the police put forth, they had agreed to build a lab in Kabeja. No, they have not been held accountable on when that lab is going to be built.
All right.
So we on a daily basis by the government and by senior officials, but there is no accountability on when these things are being done, because we're always all the time playing to the gallery.
Ma'am Tamara, let's come back to you. I mean, I read a statement from one of the gender-based activists, for example, in the Western Cape, saying that the budgets that, for example, the Western Cape is talking about are just figures, but no action. She says, I don't even take note of the budgets because I haven't seen a change or seen what the budget is really used for. Are these really just allocations in number only, or is there action that is being taken, and are there clear time frames, for example, on this issue of the DNA backlog? There's just really been no clarity as to what is the bottleneck.
First and foremost, I just want to say that I think what Advocate Madumise is saying is quite true, that we have been listening to, how SAPS wants to address the issue of backlogs for the past few years. which is why the Commission for Gender Equality has actually, in the previous financial year 2021-2022, have decided to actually go in and have a look at what is happening. So that's part of our own internal investigation to look at where the backlog and what are the causes of the backlog. And talking about the budget, the budgets are allocated for different provinces, and I know that we've been to almost all 9 provinces by now, and we will release our report that actually says exactly what we have found on the ground. So the budget is there, the policies are there, the SAPS has a strategic plan with very clear key areas of implementation, including unblocking, the blockages that we are talking about regarding, the units or the desks, as well as the DNA backlogs. However, very little has happened on the ground. I think what we have found out and what we have discovered in our investigations is that there are cases that are there that are dating back to 2017. And those cases are still waiting for the results that haven't come back from the laboratories in the country. And this is a cause for concern. And it's not only the cases that only include women, that only include elderly women, and some people have actually died. Elderly women have died and have left those cases unresolved. And these cases also include children. And this is concerning, and I think we are really, that is why we are calling for the leader, the newly appointed leader, not only to look at issues of budgets, but to really look at what are the causes of those backlogs when it comes to rape cases, and why these rape cases are not seeing the light of the day.
And are the police incorporating relevant stakeholders to help them deal with these blockages and reduce the kind of delays that we are currently experiencing? Mam Tamara?
Are you asking me?
It's still for Mam Tamara. I'm going to come to you now as well. I'll give you an opportunity to weigh in on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I think we will be, first and foremost, we will be making recommendations in terms of stakeholders that need to be included so that we can be able to deal with these cases. And I'm dating this back to our intervention as well when the rape kits were not enough. I think we called out everyone, including stakeholders that need to be there. People like, Advocate Madumise, who are on the ground, who are able to actually come in and say, these are the things that we need to do as a multi-sectoral, intervention, and not only looking at SAPS. So we need not only government, but we need civil society organizations that are able to keep government on toes and keep them accountable. I think Advocate Madumise earlier talked about accountability that is not there.
Yeah.
So that's the function of the civil society organizations to keep, government institutions, including SAPS, accountable, for these domestic cases and gender-based violence cases.
Are we at that point, though, where Advocate Madumise is taking us to say it's maybe now time to even hold the minister financially accountable, judging by the ruling that came out today? Are we at that point, and are we prepared to go that far in order for us to begin to see results? Ma'am Samara?
Are you
I'm still with you. I'm still with you. Yes.
To me or to Advocate Madumise?
No, I'm still with you.
Oh, okay. No, thank you very much. Yes. I think it's time to hold the minister accountable, and I think that's the aim of our intervention as a Chapter 9, an independent Chapter 9 institution, to actually sit down with the minister himself, Mr. Bekitsele, and we table our reports and our findings, including our recommendations, to the minister, so that there can be something that is done, including the National Police Commissioner as well as the provincial commissioners. Because what we have discovered was that there are issues that are different and interventions that are happening differently in all 9 provinces. So we also need to make sure that once our report has been developed and finalized, we will then have a meeting with the National Police Commissioner as well as the Minister and hold him accountable and bring him to the Commission for Gender Equality to come and account for issues or for the things that have been promised to be put in place but haven't been done, and systems haven't been strengthened. So we will have that session with the National Police Commissioner as well as the Minister, as well as the provincial commissioners in all 9 provinces.
Advocate Madumise, that question for you. Is this a collaborative effort? I'll tell you why. For example, you hear the health department saying what actually ends up on our desks is not just health problems that are brought on by gender-based violence, but these are socio-economic and political as well as cultural problems. So is there a collaborative effort being taken to address these issues critically, bringing on board all the relevant stakeholders?
No, it is a collaborative effort. The National Strategic Plan, excuse me, on gender-based violence, it was designed in such a manner that it is collaborative in its execution and implementation, right? So if you look at the 6 pillars, those 6 pillars are supposed to be executed and implemented by all of us in our respective fields and areas and institutions, right? But for that to happen, you need a coordinating body for that to happen, because the biggest drawback for why we have failed so spectacularly on gender-based violence in this country is that there has not been coordination of efforts, right? I do the work that I do, CGE does what it does, Human Rights does what it does, the many other NGOs do what they do, government goes the other way. So they have not been able to coordinate those efforts so that we can have the impact that we are looking for. Now, the National Strategic Plan had advocated for a coordinating body being the Council on gender-based violence. As we speak today, we still awaiting a decision on when that council is going to be put in place. So we work against the good work that we put in, and halfway down the line, we are stuck because those who are supposed to take this forward are sitting back and not implementing the decision. So the response on gender-based violence is supposed to be collaborative, is supposed to be coordinated, and can only be coordinated as we had espoused in the National Strategic Plan, so that we bring all the parties together, and all of us at different points in where we are can start to do prevention work, can do the legal work, can do the research work, can do the can support work, can look at changing the material economic conditions of women so that they are not dependent on abusers. So collaboration is key, and it has to be fostered and foisted on all of us, and you need that coordinating body to be in place as soon as possible for that to happen. Yeah. Finally, Thabo, is that we also need to look at how SAPS is structured. It's a hierarchical organization. It's very centralized, so they wait decisions from the province or even national. So if the CGE is going to be engaging with the South African police with the new commissioner, the first thing that they should be asking for is give us your training manual around gender-based violence. I want to know how many times have they dealt with the cases that have come before our courts to analyze, interpret, and understand.
Let's talk then that particular question, Mam Tamara, as the National Commissioner gets into office. Look, he's not been particularly out of this particular space. He's been the Deputy National Police Commissioner. So he knows, and as you put it, you have been working with him along the way. What should he be prioritizing as far as this issue of resolving the bottlenecks and the backlogs?
Look, I think the first and foremost issue that I need to bring on board, having just taken from the latter sentence by Advocate Madumise around the training manuals. We had a meeting with the SAPS leadership. I will call it leadership, but I think at the time in 2019, we also wanted to discuss issues of, how police are dealing or addressing and handling cases of gender-based violence and domestic violence. And that meeting culminated into an agreement that SAPS will go away and look at revising their strategic plan, because their own strategic plan should also be aligned now to the current strategic plan that Advocate Madumise is talking to, the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. So there needs to be alignment. I think as we engage the newly appointed commissioner, we will talk about the need and the importance of alignment of their strategies with the current newly developed National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, including looking at the 6 pillars that the advocate talked about. That's one. Secondly, we talked about in 2019 the need for a training and also looking at the training manuals. I think at that time there was an agreement to say that SAPS will actually share the manuals that they are currently using to train SAPS officials, and we can look at the gaps that they are currently having. And I think with the newly appointed SAPS commissioner, we will also talk about that, and we impress upon him that it's important that we look at the manual, the days of training, the outcomes of the training.
All right, I'm going to come in there. Unfortunately, because of time, I would bring you back on so that we can share a little bit broadly around that training. But ladies, let me thank you tonight for coming on.